This is Red Ice Radio. From the visible to the obscure. RedIceCreations.com.
Greetings, friends. Good to talk to you again. Welcome if you're joining us for the first time. My name is Henrik Palmgren, and if you need to familiarize yourself with our program, please go to our website, RedIceCreations.com, and you can listen to the 100 plus or so hours of radio that we have available for free on demand on our website. We also have a TV program and a member section with much more: films, second-hour radio shows, videos, commentary, music, and much more. Filmmaker and author Jay Weidner is with us today on the program to talk about Kubrick's Odyssey, secrets hidden in films of Stanley Kubrick. We begin to look closer at Eyes Wide Shut and how it connects with mind control, the elite, their deviant sexual behavior with orgies and pedophilia. And we explain this in the context of archonic, demonic and satanic forces. Kubrick told an important story with all his films, and they all connect in some way as well. The question is if Kubrick actually was murdered, considering what kind of message he tried to get across to his audience. This has to do with NASA, the Saturnian cult, the secret space program, the Ringmakers, Lord of the Rings, and even Arthur C. Clarke. We span all across the conspiratorial and symbolic board with Jay Weidner, so please stay with us for a fascinating 2 hours. Welcome back to Red Ice Radio, Jay Weidner. It's been about 3.5 years, I think, since we talked last time back in 2007. It's good to have you with us again, Jay. How are you?
Hey, it's great to be back. I'm great. How are you, Henrik?
I'm excellent. Thank you for asking. You really have been doing a lot of work since we last talked with you. Obviously, I think the biggest and one of the most important development that you've been working on is the new Kubrick films, 3-part series. The first one of these are out right now. It's called Kubrick's Odyssey, and I know, as long as I've been following your work, Jay, that you've been into the works of Kubrick, alchemical Kubrick, as you call him, anyway. What is so alluring about his work, Jay? Maybe we can begin to talk about this and your film, of course.
Stanley Kubrick is, in my view, the most consummate of all filmmakers, because he not only had the intellectual background needed to be a good filmmaker, but he also had the talent, visual talent. His films are incredibly visual, and they don't seem to erode. Even films as old as Paths of Glory still hold up really well. And so it was a combination of his intellectual skills and his technical skills that attracted me, and the fact that he didn't like to tell stories in the way that Hollywood prefers stories to be told, and that attracted me. But most of all, it's his content, and each film takes a different part of the human drama and breaks it apart so that we can understand it and therefore ourselves a lot better. And my whole thesis, of course, is that he was, after Dr. Strangelove, when the military saw the technical feat that he did creating the B-52 bombers, they realized that this guy was really good, and they hired him to do the Apollo moon landings, which is not to say they didn't go to the moon. I do believe they have gone to the moon, but I don't believe what they showed us was really true, and I think I proved beyond any shadow of a doubt in the new film, Kubrick's Odyssey, how he did it, showing devastating evidence of it. And then I go into The Shining, which is not really about a Stephen King novel at all. It's really the secret story of what Stanley had to go through while he was doing the Apollo landings, and what he put his wife through and his family and himself through. And that I have a serious amount of new evidence which is going to really make some people squirm. And people think that I'm going to get sued by NASA or the Kubrick family, and I really don't think I am going to get sued, because if they do sue me, I'm going to take them to court, and I'm going to bring in Hollywood special effects artists who are going to testify in court that I am right about the front screen projection process and its use in the Apollo program.
Mm-hmm.
So if they want to take me to court, let's go for it. Let's get a jury, and we'll let them decide whether Stanley Kubrick faked the Apollo moon landings or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I would predict that I win by a long shot.
Interesting. Yeah, well, as long as they don't have the control of the court, I guess, in that sense. But that's another
story.
story.
I mean, I would demand a jury. I would demand a jury trial. I wouldn't let the judge make the judgment.
Yeah.
I would. There are certain things that you can do in the United States, and my bet is that they're not going to do it for several reasons. Number one, of course, is business reasons. I'm going to increase the sales of Stanley Kubrick DVDs over the next years. And they're greedy, and so I don't think they're going to complain just because of that single reason right there.
Do you think that Stanley Kubrick was murdered, as some people have speculated about?
Well, I don't know. I wasn't there, but in 1999, when I first released the Alchemical Kubrick article, I got a mysterious phone call from an anonymous person who was one of Kubrick's assistants, and he would not tell me his name, but he answered certain questions well enough for me to know that he definitely knew Stanley, and he thought that. He was there when Kubrick showed the film to the Warner Brothers executives. Apparently Stanley smoked about 15 cigarettes in the lobby of the theater during the 2.5 hours that it was showing to the Warner Brothers executives, and Stanley was extremely worried. And they came out and they were very disappointed in the film, and told him that it needed to be edited heavily, and he refused. And he went home and died, and there's a lot of other strange things that went on during that whole thing. And so, is Kubrick like Mozart? Did he release secrets and then die? I think he did, and the reason I think he did is because even though Eyes Wide Shut is severely edited, and even though Eyes Wide Shut has severe continuity errors in it, which Kubrick would have never let happen, which means that things have been cut out in between the shots, enough is in it to make one realize that Eyes Wide Shut is really a film about Operation Monarch, which is a CIA operation, which uses beauty queens to mind controls beauty queens to infiltrate various organizations and things like that. What's interesting about Eyes Wide Shut is that, and I'm having a total blank now on the name of Sidney Pollack, but Sidney Pollack's name in the movie, and he's the guy who's playing pool at the end and telling Tom Cruise not to mess with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the doctor.
His name, the doctor, his name in Yiddish is bricklayer, and bricklayer is, of course, mason, and he's obviously the head of it. So, he's the head of the Masons. And Kubrick is telling you pretty clearly by using his name that is so. And then you begin looking at other things in Eyes Wide Shut, like the fact that the orgy scene in Eyes Wide Shut was filmed at Nathan Rothschild's mansion outside London. And you begin to put together these things, and you begin to realize that Kubrick, I don't know why, but he felt the need to fully explain everything of the occult kind before he died. And it really helps people like me who are going through his films and trying to untangle them to have Eyes Wide Shut, because it confirms that there was an occult connection in Kubrick's life, and I believe Eyes Wide Shut is really the story of Stanley Kubrick. I believe that he did go to these parties. I do believe that he did rub shoulders with the elites of the world, and he did their bidding. But just like Tom Cruise and just like Jack Nicholson in The Shining, even though it appears that he's been accepted into this group, in reality, he is not accepted and will never be accepted, and will forever, just like Jack Nicholson will forever be the caretaker of the Overlook, so too will Tom Cruise always be just the house doctor to the elite. Mm-hmm. And so you're accepted into an outer circle as a servant to them. And that's what Kubrick felt that he was just a servant to the elite. And this is why he walled himself off in a big estate in London and chased people off with shotguns and things, notorious, not because he didn't like people, but because he was so bloody paranoid over what he had seen and what he had done and what he knew, mm-hmm. that he didn't want anyone around him because somebody died. Kubrick is obsessed with this idea, both in The Shining and Eyes Wide Shut, that somebody knew something about him and they paid their life for it, whether it's the girl who saves him at the orgy or whether it's Halloran dying in The Shining. He told somebody something. They died because of what Kubrick told him, and this haunted Stanley all the way to the end of his days. Mm-hmm. And this is why he was a recluse and why he was so strange. And I think it's completely and totally understandable. And, you know, Kubrick was just a young guy when he got involved in this. He was only 33 when he started getting into this, and it looked good to him. It looked sexy. It's like the scene in The Shining where Jack Nicholson sees the beautiful woman and he starts kissing her, and she turns into an old hag who starts laughing at him. Well, that scene's not in the book. That scene is Stanley telling you that he thought this was going to be a sexy thing. This was going to be totally cool. We're going to do the Apollo moon landings, be accepted into the elite, make any movie he wanted. And it turned out instead to be an old hag laughing at him, exactly the opposite of what he expected.
Very interesting. What do you think is I mean, as you point out here, there's a kind of a story that is being told through many of his films and many different kinds of secrets and many different dramas playing out. But do you think that there is a single one most important piece of information that he was getting out through his movies? And if so, was that the reason why he was potentially taken out as well?
Yeah, I think you can see that, the way he starts it out, Paths of Glory. Well, the killing is really about how his obsession with time and how he breaks time up into different segments, and you can be in the future, and then you can go into the past, and then you can be in the present, and all these things are happening all at once. Incredibly ambitious for a guy in his 20s in the 1950s. Paths of Glory is a whole story of what World War I really did to Europe and the corruption that it caused in Europe. And Dr. Strangelove is, his view on the military-industrial complex. 2001 is his alchemical view. Clockwork Orange is about mind control, and ironically, it appears as if the astronauts themselves were clockwork oranged into the fact that a lot of them can't remember that was going on the moon. Mm-hmm. For instance, Edwin Mitchell could not remember what happened to him on the moon, on Apollo 14, and he went to the famous hypnotherapist Robert Masters, whom I knew while he was alive, and Robert Masters told